Okay. So you said each state and something nifty about them?
No, it's just,
No, it's called the 50 Nifty United States.
yeah. But like the whole third grade's being it, or
Okay.
most of third grades.
Okay. I'm sorry you're missing that. I'm kind of sorry I'm missing that.
I told him, well, if you forget the words, you can just move your mouth. And he was like, yep, but then no sound will come out. I was like, yes, yes, I know, but there'll be another like 7 minutes. It's okay, no one will notice.
Yeah.
And he was just like,
Hmm.
oh, so sweet.
That tends to happen towards the late middle of songs. Yeah,
He loses it around South Carolina.
yeah,
It's in alphabetical.
yeah, that's about right.
Okay, 2 more minutes.
As long as he gets Louisiana, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. For Michelle.
Okay, P9. Okay, please say when to start.
We're supposed to log in this Zoom as well? No.
Huh?
We don't need to, right? Because we didn't.
Okay, it's now 6 o'clock on this leap day of February 29, 2024. And with that, it's time to start our meeting, our roll call for tonight. We already have here in person, myself, Aileen Lee, Bridget Watson, and online we have Nancy Newrick. So with that, we're gonna start with our meeting. Please, can you join me on the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, we move to the Living Land Acknowledgement. Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Mucklima Ohlone. Oh, sorry? Huh? Oh, yes, before that, we're gonna start, this meeting is being recorded as per request of the board. And I wanted to introduce our wonderful interpreters that are gonna be online. Please introduce yourself and explain how to do it.
Hola, soy Ángela, soy una de las intérpretes esta noche. Estoy aquí con Adrián también. I want to say good evening to everyone and to let you know that the Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the world icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration. Buenas tardes, se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración.
Thank you for that, and thank you for being here. And with that, we move to 1A, which is a living land acknowledgement. Centerville School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Mokwima Apnon tribe, who have peacefully honored and cared for this land for thousands of years. We recognize that every member of the Centerville community continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land. We acknowledge our responsibility to learn from the wisdom of the Apnon people and to consider how we might work to repair injustices and to move forward together in honorable ways. And with that, we move to item 2, which is the approval of the agenda. If it is recommended that the board approve the agenda, if there is anyone who wants to, I don't think there is.
Did you want to move item 12 up, consent agenda,
Yes.
Isabel?
I think that would be good. Let's try to do the consent agenda.
After number 9.
After number 9, see how it goes today. So with that change, is anyone here who wants to move
Do you need a
Doors.
public comment first?
We could look up on the agenda order.
Yes, do we have any public comment on this item, on the approval of the agenda as it is, or with any change? Okay, move with that.
I move to, I don't know if this is, sorry. I move to approve the agenda with the modification that the consent agenda items move up to right after number 9.
A second.
Okay,
Is that where
with,
you want it?
yes, that's how we want it.
Okay.
With that, if anyone wants to approve that, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, with that, we have 4 votes and we move forward. And tonight, we are gonna have a closed session. So now is the time for public comments and closed sessions. We are gonna have a consideration on student expulsion and public employee performance. So if this is the time for the public to talk about this particular item, item 4. Is there any comment? Okay, seeing none, then we move forward to our closed session and we'll be back in about an hour. So please come back or stay tuned.
Great.
But we can come back sooner, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you're going to come to closed session.
Yeah, we move. Huh? What was it?
Right.
Yes, we wanted to.
So we're gonna call
Yeah.
Nancy?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll call you Nancy.
My first step.
Do you want your history?
No, it's a, not else, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mike.
See,
Yes, I can.
hey Nancy, you're still on our channel.
Nancy, yeah, you'll,
I'm
There she goes.
yeah.
Try to put them in order of, by numbers,
Right,
so.
yeah, I definitely did see that. Beautiful, thank you. That means it's time to go home for me, that's all that means. Yeah, that's what that means.
They're coming.
Yeah, I heard a little chatter, so, yeah.
Good, I think that's here.
Maybe council basketball, yeah.
So we detect things, that's sometimes when I'm in the car, and you'll see the radio, like,
Right? Like, I don't think like that, like, what did he say? Library. Oh!
Yep. Yeah, but
Or when you're at a game, like at a live game.
Where's my son?
I'm not gonna ask them to picture.
Oh,
Yeah.
The worst is when you're on an away game, like in another stadium, you're watching it, and then they keep showing the other teams stuff.
Yeah.
Love those
It's like a giant-
opportunities.
It's like when you're in San Diego, you're watching
That's
the
so
giant right
nice.
there, always showing the
Very
other
nice.
people.
Yeah. I have chips.
Your kid singing 15 at the United States.
Wow. So did your husband go with the baby to the assembly?
No, my parents are there.
Okay.
My husband's like, oh my baby.
Okay.
But there's another one tomorrow morning, if you guys wanna come at 8.
At 8?
At 8?
Is the second show better than the first?
It's for the school, so like, for all the kids who didn't make it.
Or no, but what do you think are they more excited about the first one and there's a letdown
I
in the
think they're
second show?
definitely more excited for the first one,
Okay.
just because it's like novel.
Yeah.
So
And the second
we're
one's-
doing this after school, and we're gonna be here, and all our family's gonna be here.
It's like, it's a whole different thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, and, Laura just sent me a message, I think she forgot to, Linda forgot to take off that last item, so it shouldn't be on there, let me take it off that doc now. She must not have removed it.
What's Mewtwo's assistant's name?
Rosa? Oh, assistant, Kay. They mentioned Wakanda on the daily a few days ago. I didn't expect
Yeah,
that.
he's kind of a thing.
I didn't realize that.
Did you guys watch the play? Yeah, so they, did you get the science after, let's start. Yeah, and so, yeah, so the ESPN, we're gonna go down for the BYU game. BYU's really good this year. So it's gonna be really, they're gonna be very, it's gonna be a really good game.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of an upset because they beat UCSB twice.
Pepperdine beat
Yeah, UCSB
CSB, and that was an upset for them.
That
to
was
beat
an
CSB.
upset.
Okay,
Because UCSB is ranked 8th and Pepperdine is ranked 11th.
okay.
And then they played Stanford and Stanford was ranked higher than them as well, and they got one set. And then
Oh,
they,
Stanford won, but it was close.
well, no, I'm sorry, they won the first game, they won,
Yeah.
and it went to 5. And then the second game went to 5 and they lost. And I think they were just very tired because it was 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't do it. But yeah, it's exciting, so, and then I think they lost both.
Did they
lost-
play Stanford here or down there?
They played Stanford up there. They didn't play Stanford at all. They didn't come here at all, which.
Oh, okay,
was
so I was
really
like, you were
fun.
supposed to tell me if they were
I know.
coming here, I was gonna be mad.
And then UCLA, they
So
lost both
they're not
UCLA
coming up
games
here.
and they were very like upset, but UCLA is like,
Yeah.
they're number 1 or 2. Like Long Beach and UCLA are 1 or 2. So yeah, anyway, but I'll let you know when the
So
BYU
they
game is.
BYU.
At the end of March, like,
Okay.
toward the end.
My dad's
I'll try that, let's watch one. Yeah, that's like what number he is.
Okay,
My dad's
Okay.
still on later than mine, Pepperdine and Stanford.
Oh,
It's 7:03 and we're coming back from closed session. Michelle is now present at the meeting, she was present at closed session, but Nancy had to leave. So I need to keep record of that. Okay, so we are now moving to item 5, which is reconvene to open session. What we need to say about our closed session is that the board voted to expel student 134776 and to suspend the expulsion and to approve a stipulated agreement through the 2023 to 2024 school year. And the vote was 4 pro this and 1 abstention, 4-0. With that, we reconvene and we move to the next item, which is item 6, comments from the board and superintendent. And for that, we're going down the road. So let's start with Michelle.
I don't really have, it's on, yeah, I'm here, okay, sounds quiet. Sorry, I'm trying to log in. I don't have like anything kind of official to report, but we're starting in like in my personal life, like the very busy sports season, and like one of the kids is in the middle of 2 sports right now, so life is getting very busy and crazy in our household.
I'm trying to remember what I did, and I think, let's see, Sunnyvale Dance Club had a meeting, Aisha Wahab was there, she took questions from the audience, she spoke a little bit about education and possibly a mechanism by which they can reduce the parcel tax votes to 55%. But I don't think that's actually in process, just something that she was thinking about doing. I went to Rohana's education town hall. He talked about some progress they were making on, I don't remember what it's called, but fixing that thing that makes it so that teachers can't claim their Medicare benefits if they go into if they have a career before teaching and
The
then go into-
retirement issue.
Yeah, the retirement issue, so they were talking about fixing that. He mentioned that every year he sponsors the Fully Fund the IDEA Act, and no year does it ever pass. And yeah, so there were a few other things. There were a few other things. There was a woman from Santa Clara Coalition for Science and Reading who offered to work with his office for possibly retraining or funding for teachers to be trained in the Orton Gillingham curriculum so that they're better able to teach literacy. I am interested in learning more about that. I feel like early literacy is so crucial to a student's success. And if we don't have the tools to do that correctly, or if our teachers aren't taught to teach that correctly, then that's bad. I went to a few of the Fremont Union High School District meetings. We've talked about articulation, a meeting with them, talking about articulation from our district to theirs, and I would like to request that be a future review and discussion item perhaps on the agenda. I realized that, I think there was some backup in getting data from their district or something, but I really want to talk about that and just maybe even as our board, maybe just brainstorm or talk about how that's going. We also talked in the past about inviting their board members to our equity summits, and I also want to revisit that idea. I don't know when the next equity summit is though. Thank you.
Okay, so I sent my activities in, but I had a couple of reminders for board members that tomorrow at 11:30, there's a lunch for SCCSBA is having a lunch at OPA, Rain or Shine in Campbell. There is also March 7th, if you haven't signed up for it, at 4 p.m. There's a site tour for trustees of the Mount Humisman School District's teacher and staff housing. So there's a Google form from Bonnie at SCCSBA for that. March 9th is legislative brunch. It's a Saturday morning. It's in person only in the FUHSD boardroom. And coming up next week is CSBA's legislative action week on Zoom. So if you haven't signed up yet, you could probably get a slot. And they might have to do that thing where there's only 2 of us at a time. So we'll see who we get. And then Thursday, March 21st at 5:30, there's the Ed Foundation Showcase, was formerly known as the Mixer, but it's to showcase all the foundation's work in the last year. And I just want to thank Isabel for her creative graphic design. Wow.
Oh, you did that?
She did this, she did, I know, it's amazing. And all her hard work, and she's helping put all the things together for the Mixer as well, so she's on that team. And then for the, I'm also interested in the 2 things that you mentioned, the articulation between districts meeting and inviting the high school district board members to our equity summits. I think they could use a little perspective, or not, whatever it's called now. Okay, and we know what I mean.
Yep.
But I'm also, my one highlight for the week, this last week, even though it's been a month, was I went on a field trip to Yanza Planetarium with the 6th graders from SMS, because I'm on their volunteer list, and this field trip was amazing. I sat next to a 6th grader on the bus and chatted him up a little bit, and you know, I was like just basically asking him, how's it going? And he said, well, you know, I think, you know, he said, I like school, I like math and science. He said, I said, well, how's math going for you? And he said, well, it's going well, but you know, I think I just catch on pretty quickly in school in general, and then I just, you know, have to kind of sit around and wait. I just wait a long time for everyone else. The rest of the week is catching up on their work, and I'm like, yes, I've heard this before from my own children. I've heard this before. So he was like, I'm okay with it, you know, and I just, it really just for me one more time was like one more thing of like, hey, middle school re-envisioning. Once we get that strategic plan down, and I'm looking forward to reimagining middle school together. But I love being on this board. I love, you know, running into everybody at everything, and I love seeing the kids and talking to kids and teachers and admins and everybody. It's just the best thing. So, little bit of reflection on that as we're heading into election season and people are going crazy out there. So, come and join us next year.
Well, before we move on for the CSBA Ledge Action Week, yes, like, do we have at least 2 people sign up? Because if they do, I'm gonna not, right? Because like, we can only have 2 people on. So if there's 2 people who are interested, like, are there 2 people here who are interested?
I signed up. Did you sign up?
I don't know.
I didn't even know it was next week.
I knew about, I
It's the
mean,
12th. I'm
I
sorry,
signed
it's
up
not
for
next
the-
week, it's the week after that.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
in
we
2
could just
weeks.
have an email exchange then to like, really only 2 of us can do it, so we'll just
I
figure it out.
can email Rita and find out, and then I'll tell her.
Okay,
Okay.
so I signed up for the legislation brunch, but not for the weekend, yeah, you know. I will.
You still can, there's still time.
Yeah, I will. So this has been a few weeks, so many things happening at the same time. We just I don't know if we talk about the African American Month history. So it just went by. And I don't know, because we had a governance meeting before, so we didn't have time to talk about that publicly, but I think we have many resolutions over the year about this month. Anyway, we're starting tomorrow the Women's Month, and today there was a big event, but well, I didn't, about women's Women's Conference of California in San Jose, but I was instead here with a wonderful meeting that we had with SEF. And that was one of my things, I will write it down for Jesus later. But we did have at that meeting, getting together the board of SEF and our cabinet. We will have, I had at least 1 or 2 meetings a week with SEF and at least 1 or 2 meetings a week with Santa Clara CSBA. And we are closing now the Hoffman Award in part where we learn a lot, and we will be listening and hearing more about it in the next month or 2, even more at the board. So I will put some sort of little presentation later in April, and we'll talk about that with Mike, so we can schedule something and all we can learn the same things I saw. Other than that, just as an informational thing, next week are the primary elections, and good citizens go and give their opinions, so please go. And just reminder, there are many important things happening, and we should all be able to voice our opinions about it and vote on the things that are important to us. So remember that. Next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, board, I wanted to just kind of go down the order of meetings that we're going to have where there's input on the strategic plan. So there's a number of other meetings with the community and staff and all that, but we are getting into the home stretch, so that's exciting. So on March 14th, the March 14th board meeting, the first hour of that will be an update on the strategic plan. So there'll be an hour devoted to that. April 25th, it'll actually be 2 hours. There'll be an extended 2-hour study session on the strategic plan. And we'll really be getting close to the end at that point. So that's why it's a considerable block of time to make adjustments, final, kind of decisions. And then either April or May 9th or 10th, we'll do the final approval of the strategic plan. So that's exciting. So that's the plan timeline. Things could change a little bit, but I want the public to know that as well. In addition to the surveys that are going out to staff and community for input on the document, which is very exciting. On May 30th, that's the first read of the LCAP. So as you know, the LCAP and the strategic plan are related, but they're not the same. And then June 20th is the LCAP approval. So that's our timeline of work moving through the spring, which is exciting. So that's the first huge project that we're working on. The second one that is coming to a conclusion, Isabel sort of alluded to it, is Measure C. As you know, Measure C is on the ballot next Tuesday. I want to underscore what Isabel said about the importance of voting. I've been saying that everywhere I go. I've been kind of monitoring in the county and in our school district the percentage of ballots that have been returned. So far in the county, it's only about 11% of ballots that have been distributed have come back as counted, voted and counted. That's as of yesterday. And in our districts, it's actually a little bit less, 10%. So we want, as you said, I said this to the Ella staff yesterday. I said it to our instructional leadership team on Tuesday. Really, I believe public education is the foundation of democracy. That's not hyperbole. I actually think that's why we're here. An important reason why we're here. And so I think it's important that we encourage everyone to vote and to vote on Measure C. And I'm not allowed to tell you which way to vote.
Yes.
But vote.
Good.
Okay.
And other things that have been happening between the meetings that the board has been very aware of is We've been having a lot of local meetings with other government organizations about housing for, affordable housing for teachers, and more about a homeless, a solution for homeless kids and families inside the city, so that's also on the works. Okay, with that, we move to the next item, which is comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association, if there is any member from this association who wishes to speak today. Please raise your hand, or is there anyone online?
No.
Okay, since none, we move to the next one, which is comments from the California School Employees Association. If there is any member from the California School Employees Association who wishes to talk to us tonight, please raise your hand.
No.
Okay, seeing none, we move forward to item 9, comments from the public. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any items of interest to the public. However, provisions to the Brown Act preclude any action taken from any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Is there anyone there who wishes to speak to us tonight?
No.
Okay, since none, we move to the next item, which is what it was at the beginning published as item 12, is the consent agenda item. Okay, so if there is any item of the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to be approved by the board, necessary any item, the board may address the board regarding any items on the consent agenda. Is there any comments from the public? Seeing none, board, can we have?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, any second? Approving the consent agenda as it is?
I second it.
Okay, with that, everybody in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, with that, it gets approved, and we have an approved agenda. Next item in tonight's meeting is review and discussion. And for that, we're gonna start, if there is, no, we're gonna start with item 10A, review and discussion of board policy 0410, non-discrimination in the district programs and activities. And for that, we'll have Dr. Gallagher, our superintendent, who's gonna present this to us.
Yes, so this is, actually, most of these policies are brought to you because it's just a routine review. So like there were some questions in packet review, like why did we bring this up now? It's really just a routine review, and staff did a really good job of bringing them to you. So we do, I would say, we do a pretty good job of keeping our policies updated. This one really just is updated to reflect new laws, both state and federal, regarding non-discrimination in district programs and activities. For us, I don't think there's much that's controversial because this really reflects our values. So I submit to you Board Policy 410 for review and discussion.
Okay, before that, if there is any comments from the public regarding to item 10A, please raise your hand now. Seeing none, then board, do we have a motion about this so we can discuss?
It's just
Oh,
reviewing.
it's discussion. Okay, it is recommended that the board review and discuss this policy. Any comments, questions? Issues regarding this particular item? Okay,
Maybe just bring it back on.
okay. So we're ready to move on for the consent. So the next one will be 10B, huh?
Do we need to like direct them to say,
Why?
bring it back on?
No, I think that was
Yeah.
essentially right, we all said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really vote, but you just,
We just say,
Cool.
but does she have to just say,
No.
great, bring it back to on consent? They just will.
yeah,
Okay, super.
Okay, so now
that wouldn't be
we-
bad, but it hasn't, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we move to 10B, is reviews and discuss on the board policy, and this is referring the local control and accountability plan. our LCAP, and for that we have Dr. Tasha Dean.
Good evening, board. As Dr. Gallagher indicated, this is coming in particular, as we're entering a new 3-year cycle for the plan. And so with the new plan, there's some new regulations and expectations. And so this policy is coming to kind of highlight some of those, changes that will be forthcoming. One in particular, which I guess I'm biased to a little bit, is kind of the clarification of what it means to be a long-term English learner. So putting a little bit more parameter around that particular language. And then the other is just regarding just kind of trying to tighten up the policy so it has a little bit better clarity for those that are reading and trying to understand what is the LCAP and what process does that include. And then also a few changes as it relates to the annual update, which is new, and essentially, that aspect is to inform the writing of the LCAP. So that means looking at goals, metrics, et cetera, that were used in the last 3 years, and things that are not working are not to be continued. And if for some reason some variation of that is to be continued, then having the strong support in order to move forward. So this policy is kind of describing some of those elements as we move forward with our LCAP plan.
Good. Do we have any comments from the public referring 10B? Seeing none, board, do we have?
My understanding was this wasn't just to define what an English learner is, but it was also that this will be, long-term English learners will be tracked, right, separately in the LCAP, because it's a significant group, so like that was something that that EL group, California Together and the EL Roadmap, they were asking that we'd start keeping track of long-term English learners as apart from just English learners, right?
Well, yes, but it was in the LCAP, and it's a part of like the local indicators and expectations of our priority groups in there. I think they're just calling it out to be more explicit.
Yeah.
And that's why they put the parameters of the definition. So now when we're talking about that, we know exactly who we're talking about and not keeping it kind of in this strange space, I guess you could say, when we refer to that term.
Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, I have a few questions. So I hadn't gotten all my questions in ahead of time, so I think staff got them, it just wasn't in time for packet review. So I have 2 questions just to kind of understand stuff a little better. Did you get the questions ahead of time, Tasha? Cause like it's like the sections and paragraphs, right? So
Yes.
what are the plans for these 2 sections? So just as a summary, the 2 sections that I'm referring to one was talking about essentially like student advisory group and how that works. And if there's not a student advisory group, they are part of the parent advisory group. So is that section, I'm curious about what our plans are. And then the other section, I'm only halfway through, but something about like the board shall consult with teachers, principals, administrators.
Yes.
About stuff. So I'm just curious, kind of what are our plans related to those 2 sections?
Yes, we're fortunate, we're somewhat already do this, and so Dr. Gallagher will decide if he wants to continue with the current council of students that he has to continue in that capacity, because our process has already been that he presents the LCAP plan to them, gets input from them, and then that informs our process. In addition to that, at our school sites where it's applicable for our 5th graders in middle school, they've kind of been a part of that process. So for us, I think we're captured unless Dr. Gallagher decides he wants something in addition to what we're currently doing, so that's how it relates.
And that's for that one, that you're referring to like his, like the group of
The
kids he meets with
superintendent-
like twice a year.
That
right?
is
Okay.
correct, that is correct. And in particular, this portion update in the policy, of course, is really more geared to the high school, where they actually have members on the board too, who are informing policy in different ways. So that is the greater intent, but we are doing that currently, and it's our determination will be, are we gonna do something in addition to what we're doing, or we're gonna change it? And I think Dr. Gallagher is kind of processing what he wants to do with regards to that as we move forward. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No.
Okay. And then the second piece that I think I recall was with regards to the addendum in the IDEA, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So at this point, we don't necessarily have that challenge as a district, but the piece where I think we will be covered, and I'm still getting clarification on some of these new regulations as it goes to the LCAP, but as a part of our LCAP, we are to identify specific elements that we're doing as it relates to special education students. Like it should come off the page a little bit about what we're doing in the LCAP plan, explicit for that particular population. This is referencing if something more significant occurs, then we would need to come forth and incorporate that and be sure we amend our LCAP to call out either a new goal, a new metric, a new action, or something that would address that particular issue.
So that's like the disproportionate,
Like the
Identification.
CCEIS.
Potentially,
Yeah,
yes,
stuff
that is
like that.
correct, stuff
that
like that.
that's saying that those types of notices would then, that would inform our LCAP, and that we would expect to see the results of those discussions in our LCAP.
That is correct. Either directly or indirectly, but being sure we're addressing and talking about what those particular needs are.
And I'm just gonna do one follow-up on the first, like, cause it was like kind of two sections to that first question about what are the plans of the sections. I think this is not necessarily a question, but I just wanna kind of, we're probably gonna be okay, just making sure, so there's the piece in our board policy that says consultation with students shall enable unduplicated students and other numerically significant student groups to review and comment on LCAP development. It can include surveys, student forums, committees. And I think we're already moving toward the direction of making sure we're actually more than just surveys hearing those students, but I would just like, I really like that piece of consulting them as opposed to just making, like, in the surveys, we make sure we're hitting those unduplicated kids, but I think that, like, that group that Mike has maybe doesn't hit some of the unduplicated kids, right? So I think we're already in this direction. I just want to affirm that I want to make sure that we are actually consulting unduplicated students in conversations related to this LCAP stuff.
And being more explicit about it.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome,
That
that's
makes
all my
sense.
stuff.
That makes sense.
And I'm kind of rethinking that group. I mean, they're great kids. But just for the reason that you're saying, like, how can we make sure we're hearing all the voices? It's good to bring in they serve a purpose too, but like, we want to make sure we're hearing all voices.
Yeah.
And actually, our strategic plan process, integrating the groups that we've been having coming on Saturdays and came in on
Yeah.
Friday night, and it's April 27th is the next one that we're going to invite the Fremont board. And you all, I hope you can come to, like, more of that, right? So April 27th, this is Saturday.
Are you gonna send this in, because I don't know about this?
I sent it before, I'll send it again.
Okay.
And just to kind of build upon that, you know, I really feel good about the student voices that we've been able to kind of hear through the strategic planning, and being explicit about the special education component has been helpful.
Yeah,
too.
that's what I figured we were gonna do, but I just wanted to say like, I support that, let's keep making sure we go in that direction.
Yeah, my thing is, like, we've done it like with a lot of intentionality and I was gonna say almost intensity, like this year for the strategic plan, like, what's the appropriate way to do it in the in-between years?
Yeah,
Right, because
you
we're
don't
not
need
gonna go
maybe as
this,
much, but you don't want to have none.
exactly, so how do we hit that just right? So I agree.
Let's keep that energy.
Yeah.
To follow up on the question, there's a paragraph in here, student, it says, there's an unless in here. It says basically there will be 2 students on the parent advisory committee unless there is.
That was my question, so that's what she was answering,
So
so
we're
because we
gonna-
already have
because
this
we
group,
already have
we don't
them,
need to do
so,
that.
okay, so there won't be students on the parent advisory committee.
Correct,
Okay.
because we, at this,
Unless we got rid of our student groups.
Right.
right, that is correct.
All right, I'm good.
Okay, so if we're ready to move that, so this one can be moved to the approval agenda. And then we go to 10C, the review and discussion by the board on policy 0500 accountability. And this is Dr. Gallagher.
One of the things when you start looking through policies is you realize the same terms are referenced in several policies. And so Dr. Dean just talked about long-term English learners, and so that's one of the things that's revised. The definition is revised here in Board Policy 500. This one also refers to a basis for technical assistance, which is essentially just complying with state law. And also similarly, the CCEE, California Collaborative for Educational Excellence, if a district falls into a need for technical assistance. So this is just adding language that adheres to current law.
Good. If there is any member in the public who would like to talk about this particular item 10C, please raise your electronic hand now.
None.
Okay, seeing none, we move forward. Board, any discussion, questions?
So I have one on this one, but just so you know, I don't have any for like the next 4 or 5, so it's not every time I'm gonna ask questions.
This is policy and the board's important role is policy, so this is
But I just like, if everyone's like, oh
fantastic.
gosh, Michelle's gonna ask questions or everything.
We're okay.
Okay, so the question on this one was just, the idea with it, since we're now have a strategic plan, like on the first paragraph, it just says something about like accountability related to LCAP. And so on that first paragraph, the very last sentence, I'm wondering if we want to add strategic plan as part of the accountability part, right? So essentially, it would then read, the board shall establish appropriate processes and measures to monitor results and to evaluate progress toward accomplishing the district's vision and goals set forth in the local control and accountability plan, and I would say, and strategic.
I don't think there would be any legal problem with that. I think the way it's written, it was meant to, I suppose, minimally comply with the law.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that makes sense to add that, so.
Yeah.
Jesus, did you catch that? So, okay, so
Everyone's go with that word.
we'll add that.
Okay.
That's a good addition.
That's all.
Thanks for catching that.
Good, so I will pass like that. If there are any other comments? Okay, then we move to 10D, and that will be a review and discuss board policy 0520 intervention in underperforming schools. And for that, we have Dr. Tasha Sheen again.
Okay, this particular policy is kind of integrating and calling out our responsibility to intervene for students who are not progressing as a part of the LCAP plan. And being sure that if new groups arise over a year or even as you're, data collecting, that we ensure that we're capturing whatever their particular needs are within the LCAP plan and being specific about that. And then also collecting data to go along with that to see how students are doing and growing and whether or not there are some additional deficits and how do we address those in our LCAP plan to be sure that we're supporting any new groups that we identify based upon data and success or failures, if you will, for students. And so discussion, I think we have additional questions.
Okay, if there is any member in the community who wishes to talk about this particular item, it's now the time to raise your hand and tell us. This is about 10D. Anyone? Seeing none, then we move forward. Is there any questions, issues, comments?
Since Mike said it was okay, I'm gonna add a question.
Wait a minute, that was not with the understanding. No, I'm just teasing.
So I'm just curious with it shouldn't be a hard one, but it says, at discretion, the board may submit a request for technical assistance related to these reports. And I'm just curious, generally, do we reach out to the county a lot for this, whatever technical assistance is? Is that something we don't do very often? Just kind of that general, just curious question.
In particular with this new 3-year LCAP, we're actually getting a lot of assistance from the county, to be very honest. Because it's a little confusing on some of the aspects, but they've been doing a good job. On February, whenever, the entire cabinet in different segments actually attended their LCAP training. So, if we have particular sections, we attended those and then, trying to get as much context about what's new. And then also just ideas to help us think about maybe new interventions or new things that we can actually incorporate into our plans. And then resources, so if we were looking for particular programs or something to address a particular need, reaching out for some additional resources if they're available.
And with that, it will pass to approval, the next phase, and now we move to item 10F, and that will be the review and discuss board policy 1220 community advisory committee. Oh no, we jumped one?
Political process.
Sorry, item 10E, review and discuss political policy 1160. And for that, we are gonna listen from Dr. Gallagher again.
Okay, this, I think is a good one for the board to study, actually. I think we follow the rules pretty well. I don't know, is this included in the governance handbook? Do we know? If it's not, perhaps we could consider including it, because what this talks about is the board's role in advocating for or supporting things like ballot measures or candidates. What else is on here? Legislation, the difference between advocacy and legal advocacy, political forums, all that kind of stuff to keep us, some of the lines are, it's really important to stay on the right side of it, and it's a little bit tricky, right? I think we do a good job of it. And so essentially this policy is just updating our current policy to comply with current law. But I think we might consider putting it in the governance handbook.
Is it
So it's a little bit more accessible to the board.
this policy in particular?
Yeah.
There is a thing in here that says.
Do you want to call on the public first?
Oh, yes, if we have, please, any comment from the public who wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand now. No, okay, seeing none, then we can start a board, comments. Question?
There's a paragraph in here, the board and superintendent shall develop an advocacy action plan to define expectations and responsibilities. May include but is not limited to, et cetera. Do we have that? Should that be what's in the governance handbook or this
Maybe.
policy?
Well, I think the policy, when Mike said that, this is actually probably a good idea for the policy to be in there so people know
Mhm.
what they can do and can't do. And then also right at the very beginning, it says the governing board has a responsibility to actively advocate fiscal and public policy that supports stuff, right? I think we kind of have that there, but I think it is nice to and then when I came on the board, one thing I really appreciate about Jesus is he always goes back to the board policies,
Yeah.
and we didn't really do that before, and it was fine, but I think we really that's how your district is run by your policies. So the more familiar we can become by policies that are directly connected to us, I think.
Yeah.
So we could do both, but I think this being there is good.
Well, and I think this policy explains a little bit about going after, advocating for a bond measure, how to go about that more than, you can't urge people to vote for it, but you can go out and do things that promote the bond actually happening, so.
That informs the public about.
Yeah.
And informing the public about the
Yeah.
impact of legislation.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think everything's
But
very
so
clear.
do you have a question about do we have an advocacy action plan?
Yes.
I don't think we do,
And
so.
should we
what
include
would-
something like that?
Yeah, what would be the process for developing that?
I don't know, I mean, we could come up with one.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not surgeon.
Yeah, I mean, I would say informally-ish, right? Because we are a board who cares about it. So I think a good example,
Mhm.
we organize to get people to go to DC, we talk, right? So I think
Yeah,
I would
we
say
do.
informally, we have this, before when I would ask, what's our strategic plan? Informally, we kind of did, but not super clear. I think this is the same situation. Informally, but if we wanted a more clear.
And in a way, I feel that, it always, because this is a volunteer thing, so it is more depending on everybody's time and availability. I bet that it's not that all of us don't want to have affordable housing for the teachers, it's just that some of us might have time to go to that meeting. And we are all advocating for that, but I know that we all want great things and we all try to do our best and be there, but it doesn't mean that we all need to go and advocate for that. So, and if we create a policy that we should all advocate for this and make a list, that will be very constrictive because that's the only thing that we can do, or be more, a task that we all need to do.
Well, I think so I'm hearing different things, but I think what Eileen is saying is that should we come up with what our legislative interests and priorities are? And I would say that when we do the things that have to do with community funded districts, we host the meetings here, Mike's on that board. We go to Sacramento to go to that meeting, we talk about things that affect community funded districts, or through SCCSBA polls everybody for legislative priorities. And then
they go and they advocate kind of on all of our behalf to do that. And so if you were interested in saying like, what are our legislative interests, we could agendize that and talk about it, but I think that, you know, we might even have, under the umbrella of education, we probably have slightly different areas of focus, you know? But I think the ones that are most closely aligned with is when we start talking about things that affect us as a community funded district, or like transportation or TK expansion. Like when topics come up, we get informed and we say like, you know, feel free to drop a line to someone about this because it could affect us. So, but I've never been in a meeting where we talk about our legislative priorities.
No, except, and then you were making me think, like, kind of informally we do it, like when you have your organizational meeting, you say like, okay, who's gonna be in charge of what committees? You didn't say like, okay, we're politically advocating at that time, but it kind of is. So we could do it with a little bit more intent.
I was gonna say that I think this speaks well to our strategic plan. Like I think that our advocacy goals should be aligned with our strategic plan in whatever way that's possible.
And I think it is, and in a way, also, for example, every year, there is a new budget from the state coming out. And that definitely affects us, like what is the money that we're getting or not getting for whatever we're doing. So if we make a plan or we write it down, it's normally every year we want money to keep supporting our schools to whatever they decide to do, cut or add, we need to answer to whatever it is, come and run into it, fight for it, whatever it is. So we cannot just write it down and make, you know, a list of things that we can and cannot do because it's a fluid situation normally. We just want the best and keep going and align to our strategic plan and LCAP.
And I would bet this paragraph could be there. I mean, there could have been a history here, but also there are unelected bodies sometimes where like the majority of an elected body maybe has a belief about one who they want to legislate and someone feels differently. And so if that were the case, we maybe would want to define expectations like don't advocate the things that we disagree with on behalf, or like, right, so I think there could be a space where we need to better define this if there was trickiness, right?
Right, and it's probably good to have that in place before that happens. Not that it's gonna happen.
Yeah, but I think the fact that it's here in this board policy means that we have the mechanism to very easily create plans and expectations if we needed to.
That's thank you.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. So with that, I think we can move this to the other agenda when we can approve it.
Perfect.
And then we are going to move to the next item, which will be F, I believe.
Yep.
10F is the review and discuss board policy 1220 community advisory committees. And for that, we're gonna have a little brief from Dr. Gallagher again.
In kind of a nerdy way, I was like really excited about this one because it was always kind of bothered me that we called it this, you know, the Citizens Advisory Committee, the Citizens Bond Advisory Committee, because it is not required that you be a citizen. I think it's taken from years ago when citizen didn't have the literal meaning. So I checked with council and they said it's perfectly acceptable to use the word community in place of citizen, so we don't have to even change the acronym of the name. We can leave the acronym the same. There's one little place somewhere in the policy where I said, because there is a legal reference someplace, the Citizens Advisory Committee, where I said, when we say that, when we say community, we mean citizens. So we're legal there. So anyway, like I said, I think this is a good improvement.
Good. Any questions or comments from the public on this matter, please raise your hand now. Okay, since now we move, board, any comments, questions? Haikus, okay? Why not?
I want a haiku from you, Isabel.
Prepare one for the next one. Next one will be 10G, review and discuss board policy 1312.3, uniform complaint procedures. And for that, we're gonna shake it up a little and have Jeremy Nishigaya to tell us about it.
Thank you, Isabel. Yes, welcome to my portion of Policy Palooza. I bring to you for review and discussion Board Policy 1312.3, Uniform Complaint Procedure. This very important policy is being updated to reflect new CDE, or excuse me, California Department of Education mandates from federal program monitoring to include that you as a governing board can it limits your ability to refuse to approve the use or prohibit of textbooks. So it's an interesting new addition to kind of make sure that our governing boards are not overstepping their bounds. It also allows complainants alleging discrimination related to the use or prohibited use of textbooks, instructional materials, and supplemental instructional materials or other curriculum classroom instruction to be brought under this uniform complaint procedure. In addition, there's also some cleanup from the CDE regarding future guidelines that they have, and one technical update that the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing is now called the California Civil Rights Department.
Okay, with that, if there is any comment from the public related to this particular item, which is 10G, please raise your hand now. No, since now we move forward, board, go ahead, nothing?
I have just a funny comment.
Yeah,
But this is a perfect example of why ed code is so complicated, right? The new part where it's talking about the, like, we can't ban books or whatever, you know? It says that, like, we can't ban them based on yada yada, consistent with the requirements of education code, and it gives 2 numbers of ed code, and it says unless such study would violate ed code, and then it gives 2 other ed code numbers, and I was like, and this is why ed code is so complicated.
You can get stuck in a loop.
good. And I just want to point out that you promised a haiku and didn't do it, but let's move forward. Well, with that, you can move to the approval for next time. And now we go to 10H, review and discuss board policy on sexual harassment. And for that, again, we have Jeremy Shigara. Please go ahead.
Yes, Board Policy 4119.11 sexual harassment is being updated to clarify kind of the merging the Title IX sexual harassment complaint process as well as the district sexual harassment policy. So these important policies have been kind of ancillary to each other, and so this actually provides some clarity that they both fall under and they're more related, and that doesn't necessarily make it super clear because Title IX has its own process, but the fact that they cover the sexual discrimination aspect is being a step toward clarification is what's in this board update.
Okay, thank you for that. And if there is any comments from the public referring this particular item, please talk now. Okay, with that, board, anything? No?
I've got one question. So, I'll just read the first part. I'm not gonna read the whole paragraph that I was doing it, but the first part of the paragraph that my question from is the superintendent or designee shall periodically evaluate the effectiveness of the district strategies to prevent and address harassment, and then it kind of goes on in more detail. But my question was, are we already doing something as it relates to this paragraph? If yes, like what is it? And if we aren't, like what are our plans?
Yeah, so that's actually a great point, because this is a kind of an interesting substantive update that was included. This is a new section, so I would say under this particular definition, we are not doing it yet. We're still interrogating what periodic means, but I am confident in the fact that we have mitigations in place with our annual trainings, our Title IX trainings as well, and as I mentioned about the policy, and those two kind of come together. We also have our staff surveys, and so we have some parts in place. I don't want to make it sound like we're ignoring that. And then obviously we take every single in a reactive stance, every single complaint or concern from an employee very seriously. So we're on that end of it. So I will have to dig into this a little bit. I think other districts are doing it as well. We will rely on our county network and as well as DWK for some suggestions, because on one hand, anonymous surveys, we could maybe roll this in to explicitly in our staff survey process, or I'm a little bit hesitant to maybe engage in a research study, so.
Yeah, thanks.
More information to come, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Because
called
I
that
do,
out.
and I like that, right? I like the part about evaluating the effectiveness of our strategies to prevent and address it. Cause for sure, I know that we are trying to do that, right? Like that's something we care about, but that was an interesting space of like evaluating the effectiveness of it. Like we could think we're doing all we can, but maybe we're actually doing a really bad job, right?
Right, when it's that false positive, like, oh, we have.
Sometimes as a parent, you think you're doing something really great, and your
Yeah.
kid's like, no, you're actually doing a horrible job.
Right, exactly. There you go. No, so I appreciate that, and we will provide clarification, or we'll flush this out more and find something that works for Sunny.
Yeah, I appreciate that you included the such as and the, we might do this, the anonymous surveys or the other things like as options, because that was something that I would have otherwise struggled to imagine, like how would you possibly find metrics for this?
Exactly.
That's all.
Okay, so we can move this for approval in a future meeting. And with that, we move to 10I, review and discuss board policy 5131.2 on bullying. And for that, we have Dr. Dean.
Yes, so this policy is updating with regards to bullying and kind of the governance around that and just kind of explicitly being sure of how we are prohibiting discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and what those elements include. Also, even though it's not specifically in here, I think there was a question about it. It is also included now an AR for this particular policy so that it's more explicit from the Department of Education with regards to the guidance on these particular elements related to bullying, and also emphasizing around school safety as it relates to cyberbullying as well, and just kind of encouraging families and of course students too, but just around what it means to be respectful and have appropriate behavior, and just to kind of contribute to a positive learning environment for our students in the schools.
If there is any member in the community who would like to speak about this particular item, now is the moment. Okay, seeing none, board, do we want to expand on this?
So does it say in here what the definition of bullying is? Cause I was looking for it and I didn't quite, it was like.
I think it's in here, I'm going off my memory, but I think if you go into the administrative regulation, H, which is an information item for the bullying, it goes into a lot more detail on some of these elements. And that's supposed to be the tool, is the tool that we are using to kind of guide when we have a bullying incident. But the reality is, even though it is, they describe it in the AR, talks about physical bullying, verbal, social, cyberbullying. It's so, there are gray areas. So our process as a district has been, if we hear something or get something, we just follow up and go through it. And then once we follow up, if there are enough elements, it's kind of like a checklist. If you have enough elements, then proceed with the investigation. Even if it might be a minor offense, because it's just easier to do it that way, because sometimes what you hear, once you get into it, it's more complicated, and sometimes what you thought was a really big situation ends up not being a big situation. So you kind of have to do a mini investigation of everything before you go into the deeper investigation.
Yeah, and it says a little bit about recognizing harmful effects on students. Yeah, goes back to bullying instead of defining it, but yes, I think it explains
So what is the,
physical.
yeah, like what is, like, do we have, like, would you say that we, cause that's like one of the things that comes up with parents all the time. Like in different venues and stuff, they're real concerned about it, right? So do you think that the parents have a good understanding, parents and students have an understanding of what bullying is? Is it like a widespread problem in the district? Like, have we quantified? Like, I know I I asked in packet review, and it just seems like we're updating this policy about it, but the reason why I'm asking is because I'm wondering if maybe there needs to be some sort of like an education or like a highlight outreach about, hey, like we updated our policy on this and PS, like, here's what this means, and here's what we know about what's happening in our district, and
This is what's considered bullying, this is what's considered bothering.
Yes and no. So the simple, on when we have policies like this, it'll come up in our handbook when we start at the beginning of the school year. So we kind of re-update and remind families and students of our expectation, what is appropriate behavior, what is not. So it kind of comes up there. It comes up as a part of our restorative practices and our PBIS work at the beginning of the year. But what I will say is, even though there's ed code that describes what bullying is and is not, the reality is we have to address it based upon what each child and family feels is bullying. Because even when we give them the information, if they feel like it's bullying pretty passionately oftentimes, that's why we've just made it our practice to do at least many investigations to start, to lead into, okay, does it really follow the principles of what CDE and the state is actually saying is actually bullying. And when we get into it and we see that it's not, we try to take time with the parents to let them know, hey, we followed up, this is what we've learned, but based upon the state's definition, this is actually not a bullying incident. It might be inappropriate, it might not be nice.
we're still gonna deal with it.
But we're still gonna deal with it, but it doesn't meet the criteria as a bullying incident. And for us, how we track that is once we do the investigation, if it is bullying, to be sure that when we code either the incident report or the details into PowerSchool, that we note that. And that actually is one of the elements that comes into our civil rights report, to be very honest too. So.
Were you asking that the district host an informational what is bullying at the beginning of the year sort of thing?
Or just like, you know, cause I mean, when you said the handbook that people aren't actually handed a handbook, right? That it's all online?
It's both ways.
Okay.
If a parent wants a hard copy, we give a hard copy and then we
But I would say
send out the digital.
The reality
to all.
is, because by law, that so much stuff is required in that, if you were to do a survey of all the parents, I would guess 1% actually read the whole thing. Like, I don't even read the whole thing and I read pretty much everything.
So I guess I was just asking, like, is it
You did with
enough
your
of a
first child.
problem, like a communication or contextual problem where we would want to highlight this policy and highlight like what we're doing and just say what we said to them, like, we updated our bullying policy, but regardless of whether it actually qualifies as bullying or not, we are gonna deal with the problem. We want school to be a welcoming place for everyone, like.
I will clarify, because I'm not 100% certain how many incidents that we may have had this past year in bullying, so I'll follow up on that. But I will say the thing that we instituted was at the beginning of the year, Jeremy, with the cyberbullying and our monitoring of messages and things that may come over our emails by students. So if anything comes up like in that's kind of addressing the cyberbullying in here. There are red flags that come up from that. So we have strengthened some of our practices. Do we have a big problem as it relates to bullying? I would say no, based upon what I know, but I'll check to see how many incidents we've actually had. But I would say what I consider, or what principals probably would consider inappropriate or maybe not very considerate behavior sometimes by peers, we definitely have that. And we're doing a lot of work around that. Just, you know, what does that mean for different students? Some students' feelings about how their peers are interacting with them. So I would say that part of it we definitely see and are working through, but I'm not sure explicitly around the bullying.
Yeah, okay.
Recently, the high school district sent out a letter about the, I don't know, I believe it falls under bullying, about the bullying incidents that have happened with their students after October 7th and the experiences that Jewish and Muslim Arab American students have had. Do we have tracking for things like that? Would that fall under, I see like something about a hate crime in here, but things about, I want to say, pervasive bullying on the basis of identity? Like, is that just bullying or is that more? And is there a way that we track that?
Yes, there is a way that we track that. And when we begin to see any things like around any kind of what I would put it in the bucket of hate, When we begin to see any themes around that, we kind of pull and let our principals know, try to get feedback from them on themes and things that they're seeing on the campuses. So we can disrupt that, if you will, and depending on how significant it is, sometimes the principals will have a dedicated assembly to address it, especially with inappropriate language or references to groups in ways that are not appropriate, in a more global type sense. Those are some of the ways we try to address it, but we definitely do document it and keep up with it, and raise it to a higher level when we see themes or too many incidents are occurring. Like if there's one over here, one over there, of course, we're paying attention, but really when it's like 3 incidents, we say, okay, we know what's going on, it's one too many.
I feel like publicizing this update to this policy in something like a district update, the ones that Mike sends or that Aaliyah sends might be nice, so that people are aware, because I know everyone in the district is watching this meeting, but just in case they're not.
In case one person missed it.
Yes.
But you'd want the information from some of that information from the AR would be more helpful.
Right.
Well, and even just
Give
the
definition.
philosophy, even the
Yeah.
philosophy that like, hey, if it feels like, we get it, that it's a problem, like it might not officially be bullying, but like we are gonna address it, and this is like what we do.
So we can work with Aaliyah on some sort of messaging on the
Yes.
update.
And something as I was reading this, right, and then reading in the Packet review, right, the difference between bullying and bothering, you're just thinking about, because I've over the years helped with a lot of elementary school activities, and kids do for sure call things bullying that aren't really. I think most kids, if someone is unkind, they call it bullying, even if it's a one-time incident. And so I'm sure that's probably trying to be addressed, but that is probably, I'm sure, a tricky space, right? Kids are not understanding. I don't think I even I'm oh, bothering, that's another word, but they don't have another word to use. So all unkindness gets umbrellaed under bullying, right? And so if our kids had other language of bullying is this, none of it is okay, right? But
Right.
bullying is this, and someone just being unkind one time is this or whatever,
And I would say we put less emphasis on the word and what it means, but more on the behaviors we expect to see. Because,
And the impact.
right,
Because I'm
exactly.
thinking about that kid, it might not matter if you call it bullying or bothering, he was either really bothered or not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
So we
Yeah.
tend to do that. So that's why we investigate it all.
yeah.
Because to that kid, it doesn't really matter what you call it. To me, it's
Yeah.
bullying. So
Right.
regardless of what
Yeah.
you say as the adult, that's what it is to me.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have to still kind of give it the same level of weight for that child,
Yeah.
even though our actions might be different. But our approach to that child should be consistent with if it was bullying.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm talking about is more kids just saying so not a kid feeling I'm getting bullied, but just there's bullying happening at our school, right? They just
Yes.
use that word
They
to
do.
include all, and as we're talking now, I'm realizing Project Cornerstone is actually probably a part of the problem. Because I think, and I know a person who's part of it, so I'm actually gonna go chat with her. It might not be intentional, but we use that phrase bullying a lot, and I don't think we do a good job in Project Cornerstone of differentiating. So Project Cornerstone could actually be, and that's a big piece, right, of being an upstander, not a bystander, when you see bullying or bullying behaviors, is literally the language we use. So I'm realizing in this conversation that while that's a great program, there could be a little bit of unintended.
I was just thinking about that, because I think a lot of children's media does that, talks about bullying. I was watching Young Jedi Knight Adventures. And it also had a bullying character, and I was well, yeah, of course you're gonna see everything as a bullying incident if this is the media that you're consuming.
Okay, sorry, my one question, and it kind of connects to that, but just the sections that were about intervention and instruction and kind of about bullying and prevention were pretty much all crossed out, and so I was just curious about that. Those seem like good, important things, and it kind of relates to what we're talking about.
Yes, the reason it was taken out is previously, this actual policy didn't have an AR, didn't have an administrative
Okay,
regulation.
that's what you were saying at the beginning, right?
Yes.
You said it, but I didn't know if that was referring to my question or not.
Yes.
So it is in the AR, and I kind of
So
follow that.
more details and explicitness is outlined in the administrative regulation. So
Okay.
they're trying to leave the guidance document
Got
separate
it.
from the actual policy.
So if I were to read the whole AR, I would see stuff about instruction and prevention, or
Exactly.
intervention in there. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, any more comments? Okay, with that, we can move on and put this on the next part of the process. And then we move towards 10J, review and discuss of policy 5145, non-discrimination or harassment.
Aren't we? We're
That's
an I.
J.
We did, I was.
I was put in, now we're in J.
You might be in the informational items.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Sorry, I was
I
like,
did
it's
that.
literally right here.
I did that too.
Thank you, sorry, guys.
Good, and for that, we are gonna have Jeremy Ishigara
Yes, thank you.
present it to us.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully you didn't see Tasha and I fighting over the mic going, where are we? I, J, L. Excuse me, yes. So I bring to you, for review and discussion, Board Policy 5145.3, non-discrimination harassment. This policy has been updated to reflect California law, now requires that this district policy prohibits discrimination, harassment, etc. And interestingly, Michelle, bullying is in there again, including a statement that this policy applies to all acts of the governing board as well as the superintendent, which is an interesting thing that I was surprised that it didn't. It clarifies also, again now, that when it is unlawful discrimination when the board refuses to approve the use or prohibit the use of textbooks again. So this kind of overlaps with the other policy, the uniform complaint. And then also contains sections that reflects new US Department of Education guidance when it talks about, and I won't read it, but the cover letter just talks about the specifics regarding conversations based on race and when that can be determined non-discrimination or harassment. And then lastly, it addresses discrimination in the use of discipline based on disability, race, and gender expression.
If there is any member of the public who will wish to speak on this item, please speak now. Okay, with that, any comments, etc. from the board? Okay, it's good to have this. And with that, we can move it to the next stage. I like this one too. And then we have 10K. And that's the review and discussion for Board Policy 7214, which is general obligation bonds. And for that, we have Dr. Gallagher.
Yes, so this is another routine update that was asked for or called for by CSBA. And please rest assured that whenever we do any of the activities described in this policy, we always consult with legal counsel. And legal counsel trumps board policy, and a good lawyer always knows to look at the district's board policy as well. But this sort of catches us up with the law in terms of our written policy, specifically for ordering election and certification of school bond election, which should be coming up soon. The sale of bonds and issuing of bond anticipation notes and the deposit of bond proceeds. So this bond, this policy, as I said, will adhere to current law regarding all of those activities for school bonds.
Good. If there is any comment from the public to talk about this particular item, now is your chance. Okay, with that, we move to the board. Do we want to talk about this? Anything to add? Thank you. With that, this policy 10K can move to the next part of the process. And we move to 10L, review and discuss board bylaw 9124, which is titled attorney. And for that, we have Dr. Gallagher.
Yes, so this is also updated, and this policy is a good one to review. It describes the conditions under which we engage legal counsel. There was a question in packet review. We primarily use Dennis, Oliver & Kelly as a legal firm, and they've served us well for years. We do we can from time to time use other firms if that's necessary, and I suppose we have from once in a while. We entered last year into a agreement with county council, so that there are some things where it may be more advantageous to use them. Sometimes when there's issues that we're entering into with other districts or other agencies, it would be necessary to use a common law firm. So anyway, this kind of this policy, or actually bylaw, again, describes the parameters for engaging legal counsel.
Good stuff. And if we have any comment from the public, please, this is your moment, line up, one at a time. Okay, with that, board, any interested in keep digging into this? No? Okay, sounds good.
I do have one question, it might be too late, and I have to ask after. I realized one of my questions, I put it under the wrong board policy, so it was like a question under the non-discrimination one. So I'm assuming I can't talk about it now, do I just?
Send it to
send
me
an
and we'll
email?
find an answer for you.
Okay, good. So with that, I think we are done with our very interesting, what is it, Polypalooza?
Policy
Policy
That was a good
Palooza.
name.
Good name.
Don't encourage them.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh.
You are in.
I'm encouraging away, go, here we go.
Good. Well, there are a lot of good
Majority
stuff.
of the board encouraging, yes.
Thank you.
Excellent.
You may regret that.
So, yes, so fun stuff there.
More fun stuff next.
Lots of fun stuff. Next one is item 11A, delegate assembly review and vote of 2024 CSBA delegate assembly. And for that, we're gonna listen from Dr. Gallagher again.
Okay, so I'm actually the least knowledgeable about this process, but it's my understanding that the board needs to vote for the representatives in delegate assembly. You can vote for no more than 4 of the listed candidates. There are 5 of them listed, so you can vote for up to 4. And I'm gonna see what I can do to correct the spelling of Jody Muirhead's first name, so I apologize for that.
Okay, so board, if there is any comment from the public on this particular item, please talk now. Okay, then we can move and we can discuss this. Who wants to start posing and talking about that?
Okay, I wanna make a motion, can I make a motion
Yes.
and then we just talk about
Yeah,
it? Is that what we do?
Yes.
Okay, when I make a motion, do I name people?
Yeah, so you say I move that we approve or we vote for such and such.
Okay,
names.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I know and appreciate everybody on this list. But just to get things rolling, I moved to, I just lost their name, I just lost their thingy. Oh yeah, so I moved to nominate as a board Isabel, not just because she's ours, but because she's amazing. And then Hubis Flemmerich from Sunnyvale School
fix that
District,
too.
that Isabel. And then I would also think we should nominate
I think for
the
the motion, you just need to put 7 names without comments. and then we-
Carol, yeah,
we can-
Carol Persunka, Shali Surkey, and Jessica Spicer.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, so the reason why I would nominate those other people is because they're all current officers for SCCSBA. So Carol is she's currently the VP, will likely be president next year. Shali is currently treasurer and she's nominated and likely to become VP next year. And Jessica will be the immediate past president next year. So even though Shali and Jessica are in the same school district, I think that that's likely to only be a 1-year solution anyway, because Jessica is gonna run for the county board. So I don't know, that's just what I would do, because they're all great, and Jody's a past president of SCCSBA. She's been on there for a while, and I think other people should get the opportunity. It should be something that people cycle through, and you know, having two people from one district, there's been times when our board has nominated two people from our district, so.
Well, this would
I'm
mean
not-
we have two people
Yeah.
on, not at the same time.
So we would have
But like
two.
you're already on and Isabel would be on.
Yeah, and I think that, and like East Side High School District, even though it's a really big district, they have two people on, they have Vaughn and Lorena. Typically, those people are on opposite cycles, so if Isabel and I were both on,
Yeah.
we'd be on different year
I do think
cycles.
opposite cycles is better.
I think it's better, but like I said, I think either way, Jessica's only on there for,
Yeah.
they'd only have 1 year.
Can you
1 year
remind me,
meeting.
I looked through their bios, but I don't remember now, which one of them from Los Altos has already been on? Like one of-
Jessica's the incumbent, Jessica and Jody are the incumbents.
Well, that's Los Altos, so Jessica
Yeah.
has been on, how long has Jessica been on?
She's only been on a year.
She's only been on for a year.
Why is she, they're typically 2 years, right?
Yeah, so she got appointed when
She
the
got
opening came up because
Okay.
someone else lost their election or something. So the
Okay.
seat was up and she was president and we're like, why don't you be on this? Or VP at the
Yeah.
time, maybe.
So I don't have a strong feeling, but I think because we know in a year she's gone anyway, I would kind of lean towards Jody. But I don't have, I love they're all of them would
I
be
know.
great, so I don't have a strong feeling, that would just, that would have been probably my four. Knowing that she can't, I mean, she's great, but just
full
knowing
2
that
years.
she can't be on more, let's have someone who can do a full year. But I don't, I'm fine either way, that's just how I would go.
A full 2 years, right? A full term?
Yeah,
I think that when you're the president of the organization, it's really helpful to go, it's helpful to be on that because you're there with like a whole team of people and you can really connect and talk about how things relate to your county and stuff like that, and
you learn
It's
more
like-
about how CSBA works.
yeah, and you learn, it's like a deeper dive, it's like AEC on steroids kind of, So, I think, I don't know, I just really think there's a value in having the leadership team be on delegate assembly. Not that there's always a guaranteed spot for them, it's not something that's like you're on the leadership, like Carol was not on it, she ran for delegate assembly, they didn't give it to her last year.
Yeah.
But if, I think there's a value in it for the organization and for, not just for the person,
Isabel and Eileen, what are your thoughts?
The only thing I really wanted Shawley to be on there, because I feel like the current makeup of the Region 20 delegates doesn't have a lot of Asian representation, so that was important to me, but other than that, I'm not. Yeah.
And I like that Vaishali and Jessica are different people and they have different perspectives and they bring different things. So I think that would be a good point to have two people from the same board because they are not the same people and I like both of them. I haven't worked that much with Jody, more with Carol. So maybe she is also pretty good, but what I know about Carol, she's also a very competent person and very active, and she's gonna be the president next year, as you say. So actually, that's one of the points where I might want Carol instead of Jody, but they both look pretty good. But I would vote for as Bridget say. With that
I am
mix.
persuaded by Bridget's argument.
You're frustrated?
I mean, they're all very great people, and they've all contributed a lot and they are very, responsible, wonderful humans. But I mean, if all things, that the part that makes it more impactful, I think, is that those are all officers. And we just have to vote for Isabel because she's so fabulous. And feisty, and she's gonna get in there and learn a lot and do networking and come back with a lot more ideas and information. It's gonna be great. So anyway, are you okay with that, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not what I would pick, but it's a three, you already got three, so I'll go with it, it's fine.
Okay.
You can.
Okay, well. Okay, with that, we're gonna have a vote, everybody.
Well, can I just say one more thing too?
You're not gonna change my opinion.
No, I know, no, I just wanna say that like typically typically what happens is that, when the, typically what would happen is that if when Jessica rolls off, the Devin will appoint, and she would often look to who had just applied, and she
Yeah.
would probably just
But see,
appoint.
for appointments, that's, yeah, I mean, just, we're having things and it's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Was there a second?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay,
Okay, so with that, everybody
is raising
who
his
is, no, yes,
I just want to clarify that the names that I have listed down is everyone except Jody, correct?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
So with that, do we have a vote with that particular mix? Everybody says who is okay with this, please say aye. Aye. Okay, and
It's
with
okay if
that-
you say nay, if you want to
Well,
say
I thought about it,
nay.
but I also support that too, so I'm fine
Okay.
supporting it. But I mean,
Okay.
I have publicly said what my preference is, so
Yes.
I'm good.
And it'll be on Zoom forever. It's like really hard to talk about.
Okay, and with that, we move for that particular mix and with an unanimous vote. And we move to the next item, which is item 13, is an information agenda. So we are not gonna have a presentation, but we just want to inform everybody that it exists and you can read it. A lot of good stuff there to read. And we can move, well, let me congratulate everybody, it's 8:25, probably is a record for us. Yay. So I think somebody's not getting a chocolate because of that.
And yes.
Oh, you are getting a
no,
chocolate anyway?
I can't touch it till
You can't
9.
touch it, yeah. So, sorry about that, Jeremy. It's 8:25 and our next meeting will be on March 14. Actually, don't we have one, don't we just talk, oh no, that was what we were talking about, it was May that we have. Okay, it will be on March 14, a regular meeting at 6 p.m, the usual place, the usual awesome people. See you then. Yes.
Yay. Good job, team.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Adrian.
Oh, yes, thank you to our great translators for staying with us.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.